Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Reptiles and Cocktails, episode number 79. And I'm super excited to be interviewing this guest. You guys, if you follow me, you're going to have heard the name before. You're going to be familiar with me referencing this person before. And when I talk about, when I first got into researching and reticulated pythons specifically, although this individual does way more amazing things than just write books on reticulated pythons. And that's why I'm super excited to interview Sid James today. Because I want to get to know him better and what he has contributed into the reptile community, his personal goals in the reptile hobby, and all the things that he's been doing amazing over across the pond. And how any of that ties into the United States. We know that, again, here's the book. If you're watching my earlier YouTube videos, you will see this book posted as one of the books that actually gave me the confidence to go ahead and proceed my journey to be where I am today with these animals, and allowing myself to think freely and how their husbandry and care can be elevated to a point where they're not depicted as these crazy, wild, monstrous snakes. They are what y'all see today, and the amazing animals that they are, that needs to be respected for the apex predators that they can be and that they are. But as I say, mine have no reason to be apex in here because they're loved. But I always say when you talk about these animals, you got to respect that when I look at a 15-foot reticulated python, although I can kiss it and although I love on it, I respect the fact that even when I approach it and you see me do something as comfortable as bring it to me and give it a loving kiss, I'm watching his eyes and his body language total. So we're going to talk more about that with my guest and like his thoughts and in his processing of writing the book and the contributions to just making the husbandry and care for these animals even better. And one tip, and y'all gonna hear shortly, and how his wife introduced him to the reticulated python. Girl power. All right. So next up, I want to make sure to remind everybody, speaking of reticulated pythons, there is free shipping for anyone who is a qualified reticulated python keeper or someone that I think that is worthy of keeping my babies. There's free shipping throughout the end of August on any reticulated python posted on Morph Market. And if you have any inquiries of some that you see that I did not post on Morph Market yet, just DM me, message me personally, because that means that I have not actually cut emotional ties with that animal, but it's definitely an animal that eventually will go on the market and we can talk. Check out my video of Daytona. That was an amazing experience. I had such a good time. For the first time, guys, I didn't run neither podcast, Reptiles and Cocktails or Two Peas in the podcast with Dre, the snake god. Dre was also in Daytona, but he was willing to go on Monday. I just really needed the R&R, like I said, after all of the family tragedies that we had and situations that we were dealing with. And it was really good to just kind of check out and enjoy the events and the atmosphere. So with all that being said, not going to hold you guys any longer. We're going to bring on the guests. Hello, Sid. Welcome to Reptiles and Cocktails.
Hi. Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Yes. So you heard me kind of go through the introduction. I just wanted to say we talked a little bit backstage, and I just thank you for your contributions to me, because it was, like I said, it's documented on my channel. This book was one of the books, and Emmy, who made me realize these animals are quite capable of being kept without such extreme measures. But before we get into the reticulated pythons, just tell everybody about who you are, what you do, not just professionally, but whatever you want to share personally about your journey with reptiles.
Sure, thanks. So I've been interested in reptiles all my life, and from as long as I can remember, my parents always said you had to wait till you were 10 before you could get a snake. So it was clearly before 10 that I've been pestering my parents for a snake. They joined me up as a junior member to my local reptile society in Portsmouth, UK. And then so we attended regular monthly meetings, listened to all the talks, chatted to the old guys at the time, and sort of got to meet loads of reptiles that they had. And then with the birthday money that I had from my 10th birthday, I went along to the club meeting and, was looking at baby corn snakes and cricket tubs and picked myself a corn snake that she's still with me today, and she's 28 years old. So I've had
Yep.
all
So
that
she
time.
was the one that I actually used for the thumbnail, correct?
Yep, that's Connie. Yeah.
Yep. And you said she's 28 years old.
Yep. Yep.
So that goes to show you, like I had a ball python that died at 22 years old, and I was so disappointed because I knew they could live much longer than that, and I didn't at the time. Was in my younger stages. Find out why it died. And then someone said to me at 22 years old, it could just be old. But I'm like, well, everybody else snakes are living, longer than that. I want to know what happened, the why. But so I was told 20 plus years is damn good with any snake.
I mean, you'd say for a human 60 to 100, but you wouldn't say 100 was normal. So it can be anywhere within a range. So I still tell people like 15 to 25 for a corn snake. It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. And so just speaking, like I keep them all, the retics, the boas, the corn snakes, the ball pythons, the green trees, a little bit everything. I love a little bit everything, but the retics definitely took my heart. But I love my boas too. So let's talk about your experience with boa constrictors. Like, when did you get your first boa?
So I got my first boa about 12 years ago now, I think it must be.
Okay.
My granddad had just passed away, and he gave us a little bit of money. Not nothing huge, but I was like, I want to mark this rather than just put it into a savings account. So I went to my local store, and they had little baby Hog Island boas, and I was like, these things are so cute, and so that's a good thing to do with that money. And so I got ruined my first boa constrictor, or boa imperata.
Got you.
Yeah.
And then how, like today, do you still keep any of the animals, or you're focused on education?
No, I still keep.
Oh yeah, the corn snake. I'm talking about the boas.
Oh, the corn snake. Yeah, I mean everything I buy, buy with the intention to keep. So it's here for a long time. I've got 3 corn snakes, 3 boas, 3 retics, 2 emerald tree boas. I've got a fox snake, and then I've got lots of invertebrates, from cockroaches to stick insects, tarantulas, centipedes. I've got some little day geckos. I did have a bearded dragon, but that's moved house. It's still technically mine, I think, but it's not living in my house. And in the garden, I've got a turtle pond for lots of rescue turtles and rehomed turtles.
Got you. Wow. So we're a lot alike. I mean, you might be a little bit more on a whole nother level, but we're a lot alike as far as the variety, because I have the geckos and the tagles and the water monitors and all that kind of stuff too. But from the educational part, like, so I want to know, when was the point that you realized that we used to have local herp societies in here? I'm in Maryland, in the United States. And when I grew up, those were everywhere. There were the Bragg Science Center we used to go to all the time. That's where we saw all our big snakes, the boas and things like that. This generation doesn't have that, right? So this is my thought. I feel like yourself, myself, and people who did have those type of associations or science or natural science centers that they can grow up with and tangibly deal with these animals got a totally different experience than the generation coming up now who loves animals. How do you find yourself preserving that over, because you're in Canada, right?
UK. In the UK.
UK. Okay, you're in UK. I'm sorry. It makes sense, because I can think of something. I was like, our time should be way off from each other. It wasn't too bad. Okay. All right. So you're in the UK. So in the UK, how do you think that your contributions keep that going, keeping that society going?
Yeah. So Praz, which is my club from the Portsmouth one, it's one of the older clubs. I think it started in 1980. So it's been going all that time. I was a junior member. I sort of came back in my adult life, and I'm now vice chair of it. But there is a sort of an old school feel to like person meeting, like in-person meetings, and yeah, there was, I think, there's a bit of a worry that these things are just going to die out and not continue. But we've got a fairly strong group. We often get meetings of 40 plus people, which is quite nice, considering it's quite a small club. So the local and regional clubs in the UK are still going, even if they're not as popular as they have been in the past, or it's sort of mostly aging members. I can include myself in there.
So what you don't look that like it reading okay, so when was the book written? What year was the book written? I think I got it, I purchased it in 2019, 2020.
Yeah, I can't remember when I published. 2018 or 2019 it was published, but the writing process started years before then. I think I was in the same position you were in 2013. Someone literally just handed me a retic, not someone I knew. It was a friendly retic, and my brain went, no, everything I've heard about these over the last 10 years says they're all wild caught, they're all nasty, and I've suddenly got an albino. It's like, it's clearly been bred nicely, it's captive bred, very friendly. And they just handed it to me whilst we were talking, and this snake was everywhere, and I'm like, this isn't the reputation I was led to believe in the 90s. And then, yeah, like you said, at that point, my wife was like, we should get one of these. This is what I want. And I was like, it's something that I didn't know about, something that my brain had said, not a sensible plan, but then I've got the evidence I've got the evidence right there in my hands. I'm like, maybe it's different now. So my first instinct at the time was, right, what books are there? 2013, what books on how to keep retics are there? And there was nothing. There was a few berms and general python keeping books that sort of touched on retics, but I was like, no, that's not there. So I got most of my research at the time through friends and Facebook, and sort of pieced together what I thought was the truth, and we ended up getting a retic in October 2013.
Okay.
But yeah, over the time after that, I gave it a couple of years, and I looked again. I was like, there must be a book on retics by now. Someone must have written it, and I couldn't see one still. So I was like, I'll start putting my notes together into like a bit of a structure and my learnings. Yeah, sort of 5 years just pulling bits together, really. And then the last point that once you got it together, I was like, I think I've got enough to make a deliberate effort to turn this into a book. And at which point the really hard work started. So pushing it together, getting it into from notes to book was really tough. And I hired a freelance editor and a freelance designer, and they sort of pulled it all together for me. Then I thought, well, looks pretty good. I'll self-publish and see how it goes. And what we're 2019, maybe this book will help other people in the position I was in in 2013. And I hope it's done that. Yeah.
I was going to say, when you produce the book, do you feel like how was sales from your perspective? Do you feel like, okay, this book was needed and sales went just like this, or it would kind of like people still didn't know where to look?
Well, I think that's down to me and my self-marketing as well. But there was a good initial rush and a bit of excitement, and I saw lots of people, purchasing it and talking about it, so that was good. And since then, sort of after the first year, it's kind of settled to, it still sells, fairly steadily, not big numbers, but there's never been a time when it's not been selling, if that makes sense. So.
Right. And do you still market the book? Like, do you actively market it?
No, I haven't done that for a while. I kind of thought people are fed up with hearing about me talk about it. So,
but see, I don't think so, because I think, like, for me, like I said, I found it through. I went on Amazon and I typed in book on reticulated python husbandry, and this was one of the few books that came up. It was this one, and it was the one with reticulated pythons and Burmese pythons that came up on Amazon, and because one of my concerns now is fighting in the United States. I don't know how it is over there in the UK, but in the United States, there is still this core of people who have the thought process that we're raising these monsters, right? And then there's people like myself who might want to keep them, but they think they're monsters still. And because even with me, people assume that I do something with these animals before I record them. So what I started doing was doing live, like show the people when I wake up and I slide the door open, I step to the side, I say, hey, baby realizes it's me, and then I can touch baby. I'm not doing anything magical. I also can tell you if I come down here and slide that door over and baby don't look like it hurt baby, I won't touch it.
No,
But
fair, yeah.
they're so used to me, even with the babies that because I did breed a clutch that hatched in February this year. And the people who I'm very specific who I will sell to, because I am more connected to these animals. Sid, like I think I was a reticulated python in my previous life. I have come to that conclusion, and that I can't think as a human to be the voice.
The voice of retics, I love it.
For them. And so I take my customers through a pretty considerate screening process. Yes. Do I want to be able to sell them? Absolutely. But I don't have to either, you know, and so it's no force to do that. But I created this core group of people who now handles and look at these animals in a totally different way than you and I probably had the opportunity to get. So I would say, market the book. I mean, I'll share it more now.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's very helpful.
I'm considering a sort of second edition or a bit of an update, but that's going to take like a lot of effort, sort of starting from scratch again, in some ways. But
what will be some of the things that you think you may consider putting in a second edition to be a great addition to this one? Because this one even covered like genetics.
Yeah, I mean, the genetics chapter is going to obviously get out of date over time, just because new genes, combinations, and people are learning more all the time. I've got some things that I would put in as things I would do differently now, and a lot of people have asked me for a breeding chapter. And whilst I've never bred retics, I'm sure I could work with someone and put a chapter in like that. So that's the sort of things I'd be looking to do, but I haven't decided whether to start that process yet or not.
Got you. So right now, your current activity, you still do the you're actually like the head of one of the herp societies, correct?
Yeah, so each of the local clubs is affiliated to a bigger Federation of British Herpetologists, and each club gets a couple of representatives for that committee. So I represent my club on that committee and get involved in the work with the FBH. And one of the things I do for the FBH is represent reptile keeping in the Companion Animal Sector Council, which is a sort of a group that feeds into government and sort of covers more than just reptiles. It includes all that. Yeah. It's not funded, and it's not so much in the legal sense, but it's pulling together advice and expertise and sort of feeding information to government, which the government can then decide what to do with.
What does the UK government think about not just retics, but big snakes in general? How are they received by the government specifically? Do you find a lot of law talk around them all the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think we face a lot of the same pressures as the US and Europe, with groups that are interested in stopping and preventing reptile keeping. Snakes becoming the focus of that, in that, you know, we need to give them much more space, and we're not meeting their needs, and then the general stigma around all this. So snakes are very much the focus. And then if you were going to really focus on a group of snakes, you'd pick the giants, because they're, you know, easy to demonstrate, you know, problems and things that might not be, you know, things that you could sell to sympathetic people and go, look how cruel it is, the snake can't even stretch out. So
right. So what are your thoughts? So let's talk about that real fast. I'll tell you my thoughts, but I want to know your thoughts first. And you know, some of it is written in here, but it also, some of it could have evolved too. So what are your thoughts on what size enclosure let's say 15-foot reticulated python should be in? Just your personal thoughts. And I'm talking about as a keeper and not breeder situation, because I know it's a whole nother conversation.
That's another, so I was involved in the FBH's sort of work to develop enclosure size standards for keepers. And that recommends that the snake across one diagonal can sort of stretch out to sort of full length. So when you're talking big snakes, that becomes very big. But we did write a little exception in there that when a snake sort of gets over 3 meters or 12 feet, you really need to look at other ways at like encouraging that sort of behavior, like getting them out, enrichment, allowing them access to a bigger space. So I think it very much depends. If you're going to keep them in there full time, then the bigger the space you can get, the better. But if they're coming out regularly, if they've got access to a garden or a tree or something to climb on, or in my case, my living room sometimes, then you're meeting some of those needs already. And when they're curled up in a corner, you know, that space is just being heated for no reason in some ways.
Yeah, well, you share the same. Well, this is my actual experience, and this is what I say to anybody. I have learned that not one of these animals is exactly the same in personality and or behaviors.
Yeah.
So everything about their enclosure, Sid, is based on that. As I raise them all up, I don't. For me, I don't inherit other people's reticulated pythons. I raise mine up. From the I might get it from a breeder from at 3 months old, right? Yep. But that's about it. That's it. And everything from this point on is babies that I've actually even produced. Mm-hmm. And I noticed with that, I think that has a lot to do with the different personality traits, right? The first one that I got, she was very spoiled in the sense of attention because I was learning the reticulated python. So every day after work, I came straight to her. I took her out of her enclosure. I handled her. I gave her baths more than she probably even wanted a daggone bath, just to see, how she would react to water and stuff like that, which was one of the times I realized how much they can think, because she would come out and go in her bath herself, sit there as long as she wanted, and then come out and go back in her enclosure out of the bath when she was done with the bath. When I saw that, I'm like, oh, I'm dealing with a whole other mindset. We're about to have fun.
Yep.
But right. I noticed that I have one. All of them are conditioned that if I open these doors, if they want to come out, they coming out, and they coming out right away. It's no doubt, no question. Yep. If they want to come out, the door's open. It's like, yay, door open, I'm coming out. Mm-hmm. But I have one that you can take the entire glasses off her door. She'll come to the end. And she'll watch all the rest of them crawling around, climbing and everything. She has no desire to come out. If you take her out, she'll come out. Yeah, but she's not like any of them when it comes to that.
No, they're very unique. Each one's different, yeah.
And I agree with you that if you give them, I look at mine. I have some that's on 8x2x2, some that's in 8x3x3s. The biggest one, the first one, she was spoiled, so she's an 8x4x4. Yeah. And then I have one that's in a 10-footer because it was just convenient when I got it for the price. But none of them, even at night, I watch because I let them out all the time, move a lot. Now, when they're out, they're active.
They're going, yeah.
But it's almost like they know this is bedtime or this is chill time. So I don't have a lot of pushing or any of that.
No.
I think temps have a lot to do with that too. I keep my temps on the lower side because I notice that they don't like the heat that some people say that they should have,
Agreed, yeah.
But I think also when I see people have them in those great big enclosures, not saying that it's not good for them. My concern is they're goofy. Like the harm they can cause themselves, when they are in those larger spaces.
Yeah. I mean, I've got one of my tanks here that I've built, and then the snake's seen me sat on the sofa and has been sort of nosing up the glass trying to get out because that's the routine. I'll just turn you around quick. You can see, yeah. So that's
beautiful. I love that one.
And she's just down the bottom ready to put her head up. There you go.
And see, that's pretty big. It's not a room, and that's pretty big.
Yeah, again, I think it's a good size. It's about as big as I can provide in this room. So that's a personal factor for me. But when I'm around, you can come out and get out. Yeah.
So what is it bioactive?
No, it's just got like a soil and moss substrate. I don't think there's anything bioactive in there. I still clean it out myself as needed. So.
That is beautiful. And then on the back, did you do the back that way? Did you make the back?
Yeah, it's expanding foam and polystyrene that's been cemented over and painted and then
See, if
sealed.
I could build like that, I would be in trouble. It would be more retics in this house. Like that's the restriction for me is not the care of the animals. I let them out like literally. I'm sitting in here. I'm the girl when people is a picture that goes around on Facebook, Sid, and it says, could you imagine walking to somebody's house and it looks like this? That's my house with all the snakes just climbing around. They climb over my dining room tables. They climbing over my cabinets. They do whatever they want. All I ask of them is do not poop or pee in my kitchen. And typically, even with that, it seems like they know.
They're not bad,
To go to, I don't use the bathroom out here. This is where I use the bathroom. And some of them are so smart that they will use the bathroom on one side and not the other. I have a variation of intelligence in here.
I think mine are the opposite. They will go, oh, this isn't my house. I'm going to go to the bathroom out here. So they'll save it for me. So I try and limit that. But
yeah, I mean, and even then, they kind enough to give you warning sometimes. I always tell my son, like the girls specifically, when they become like extra active, that's normally a sign that they're about to go. Like they'll just out of the blue just get real active. I'm like, up, Michael, put it down. She got to go to the bathroom. Got to go back to the enclosure. And anytime that he does it, he's just making it. I'm like, I told you, I can tell when they get that extra active like that. Yeah. So I do think too, you talked about book on breeding, and I talked to Jake from JKR Reptiles. He does the big retics. JK Reptiles, I'm sorry. And Jake, I told him that when I started breeding, I was amazed that there's so many people in the United States who breed reticulated pythons, and there's no information, and not just in a book form, you know, even limited on like a YouTube on the different stages of the cycles of a reticulated python through breeding. So I literally documented that all on my own and kind of like put that content out there so some people can have something that they can see through it. But I'm still new, right, to breeding. Do you know of any good breeding books out there?
No, I think you're right. The material is not written down in one place. So and yeah, I've got no experience to help out either. So
yeah, so you have to kind of like piece it together. But I would tell you in the United States, there's so much knowledge and so many people who have done it and done it on different levels. Like, you know, even when I think of someone like a Bob Clark, there's no book. And there really should be, because he produced a lot of the genetics that I work with today. He is the pretty much, you know, founder of a lot of these morphs that we're working with as far as production, him and Kevin and people like that. But Kevin hasn't even written a reticulated python book yet.
No, I mean, if they write books, I'm buying them, so it's all good.
Right. But you have to kind of piece the information together. One of the goals I think I would like to see is to see it be more universal, like, not saying that everybody should keep reticulated pythons, because I don't agree with that. But I think that everybody who's capable should be given the opportunity if they want to. And a lot of people are hindered in that for the simple fact that they feel like it's just not, the knowledge is not tangible like it is for ball pythons.
Yeah, you're right. They're not for everyone, but if that's what someone really wants, then the information should be there. Like I always say to people local to me, I'm happy for you to come around and meet the snakes. That's the best way to learn. And then, you know, a big snake is very different to getting a baby snake. Yes, you'll grow with it, but it's good to see what you're going to get into at the end as well.
Right. And to understand their strength, like at different, like there are times that if you have to, like one time my golden child, Cal had a abscess. So the doctor had gave me this medicine that you had to put on the tip of the Q-tips and literally put on the rubber of the abscess. And if you don't understand that body language of the animal, that can be intimidating because, it tenses up just because you're going in its mouth. But I say the fact that these teeth are not coming at me tells me that it knows I'm still helping them. It's not trying to hurt me. It's just, I don't like it,
Don't like it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't like it. And I laugh when I would put her back. She would go drink water and go in a corner like she was mad at me. Like, I'm not talking to you today. Would turn her back and everything. Like, watching the behaviors of these animals is amazing. Like, she would turn her back and everything. And she's one that normally is always here.
Yeah.
So
wash your mouth out and have a sulk. That's the way to do it.
Exactly. What is your favorite animal to keep?
I mean, I'm fairly biased and say retics because they're so interactive, because their size, they look good, and you have people come round, and it's just, you look at the retic and you think it's looking back, it's knowing what it's doing. So
it knows it's looking back. I did a video when I came back from Daytona the other day, and I wanted people to see how my animals react when I come home, and if they know I've been gone for a few days, and when they hear my voice. Just by when people say they can't hear. So I don't know what they hear, but when I say Hefe looks.
They hear, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I don't know what to tell y'all about it because I've never been a snake.
No, I don't know if it's what we hear in terms of hearing, but they definitely sense.
They definitely
hear the noise, the vibration somehow. Yeah.
And I try to show people stuff like that. So when they see that in real time, it's like, okay, this is really, real. And I'm like, yeah, it's like a whole different. People always say how intelligent a cobra is, and I can't tell you because I've never handled one. The closest I've ever gotten to one is being that nerd and being in a room with Lilith.
Cool.
But I was way over here, and Kevin and Nick was way over there. I know my limits, and when you get to the venomous, I'm not confident like I am with a 15-foot snake.
Yep. I'm the same. Like I'm used to handling snakes where I'm well within their strike range at all times. So
exactly.
to change that mindset and handle a snake outside of a strike range, I don't think I'd do a very good job.
Absolutely. Or a snake that who can move that fast across retics can move fast when they want to. Yeah, they get like, I tell people all the time, they move slow most of the time, but when they want to get somewhere, that big old snake can get up.
That's moving,
The cobra can glide to get to it. I mean, it's like on point to get to where it is. And I will pass out. I can't get past the sound of a cobra, let alone, and it's funny. People say, you deal with them big snakes. I said, listen, y'all don't understand. It's a total different vibe from these snakes than dealing with an animal who, when I open that enclosure, you don't hear hoof. Whatever that noise is, you don't hear any of that. This is a good greeting. It comes out, we engage with each other, and we go on about our little happy time. And if ever, especially when the first one was younger, there will be times you can touch her and she'll bump you. And if she bumped me the second time, I'm fine. The third bump, I will close the door. She just don't want to be bothered. Yeah. It's that respect piece too.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm okay with retics because if they bite, it's a fair fight. Whereas if it's venomous, it's not a fair fight. Just one.
Not at all. Even the smallest little, like the smallest king cobra, like the smallest little venomous. But I admire people who, because again, they're still like how I look at the reticulated pythons and you look at the reticulated pythons. Somebody looks at us and say, we're crazy. There's no way in the world I'm going to be dealing with a snake that big. Not understanding that there's so many things that prevent us from getting harmed, even if they was in a having a bad day. There's so many ways to get away from that, opposed to, like you said, even if it bites you, we're going to live to see another day. You might have a trip to the ER, might have a bad hematoma, like that can happen. But I'll still have my fingers most likely, and still have a life. But I do admire people who take on that challenge because they still need to be seen as the beautiful animals. There are people who can handle cobras. Like there are people who can. I don't know how you get to that point. Like I don't know how you practice that.
There's some point where you're like, I think I'm just gonna have to get a cobra now, right?
No, I mean, like, how do you practice, like literally, like we practice, okay, watching the food response on a reticulated python and things like that. But again, the person dealing with a cobra, if that cobra bites you, it's the total different result.
Yeah.
So you have to be committed to die every day that you deal with a venomous animal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I've
decided it's not for me. That's
right.
That's where I've got to. Yeah.
I'm not that committed. In the book, what would you say was your favorite? I mean, I don't know if you remember the chapters, but what was the most important part, or the part of the book that you enjoy writing the most? Let me say that.
The chapter on morphs I both enjoyed the most and the least, because it was so difficult, and the bit that was rewarding was speaking to lots of people and getting their knowledge and understanding, and the bit that's difficult is some of the information conflicted, and
which you give them all credit in the book.
I'm sort of regurgitating other people's information, so I'm not, it was really good to speak to people though, and get to hear everyone's thoughts and histories and start putting it together in a chapter. So yeah.
So out of those people, who was the person that if you can recall, that kind of was like the most memorable conversations, that was most impactful?
I mean, I think it was. I'm not going to give anyone overly the credit, because it was everyone. It felt really like inclusive. Everyone was really helpful. So yeah, and the people that gave me the pictures were just brilliant as well. So yeah.
And then that was good, because I can tell you that in the United States anyway, if you reached out to someone and say, hey, I'm writing a book on reticulated pythons, and I want you to give me information on this to write the book, there would be a lot of people who would have hesitated to help you write that book. Were all of the people? No, you had quite a few people. How did you go about reaching out to the people in the United States? They were people you already had relationships with?
Not to start with. I put some questions up in groups and dropped people a few direct messages, and yeah, I think I just played it from, I don't know much, I'm trying to write this and I'd like to learn more. So.
Got you. All right. What is your favorite reticulated python morph?
I like Motley Tiger as a combination. It's quite simple, it's quite old school, but I think the combination's really nice.
Yeah.
And in the book, the picture of Winter, the leucistic, the chapter heading, that page, it's one of my favorite pictures that I got to use in the book. I was really pleased. So,
okay. And then where do you see, from your perspective, the future of reticulated pythons in America? In United States, very specifically, it is always especially when it comes to the mainland, right? Because let me give my thoughts on that. I have a dwarf who is bigger than one of my mainlands. I have mainland. She's a purple sunfire, so I expected her to be really big, and I fed her just like everybody else. She's a happy snake and all.
Yeah.
Nowhere near as big as my other mainland girls.
No.
So a lot of conversation happens here about the super dwarf, the dwarfs and mainlands, the dwarfs being better, the super dwarfs being better. My thing is a reticulated python. It's a reticulated python. In fact, I will guarantee you that all of my mainlands are easier for me to just reach in on than my dwarf. She is way more timid than they are.
Yeah. I think that sort of pattern holds. The smaller super dwarfs can be a bit more timid.
Where do you see the future of the reticulated python? Do you think we're at a point where I definitely think we should restrict breeding? I say that to everybody. Even with me, I want to breed everything if I could, but it's not enough people, you know what I'm saying, that I trust them with. But I do think, what do you think about the future of the animal? Do you think that we will continue to have generations who love on these animals the way that you and I do, or is it?
Yeah, I think there'll always be people that love retics, and that we'll keep going. I think, especially in the UK, there's a limited amount of people who are going to be able and willing and prepared to keep a retic long term. So breeding hundreds and hundreds and hundreds every year is probably not very sensible, because they'll start going outside of the people that can keep them into people that would like to, but maybe not set up for, and then you might end up with a problem there. There's definitely some merit to breeding smaller super dwarf lines. They're a little bit more, manageable for most people. But equally, there's people at the other end who breed really carefully to try and get the biggest snakes they can, and that's, that's always impressive to see as well.
Well, that's one of the things I also say, unless you know exactly where that snake was born, who it came from, who the parents was, who produced it, like you never know if a super dwarf is. Well, again, it's the percentages. We classifying them as super dwarf for what, at 67%. Well, what about that other 20%, 25%? You know what I'm saying? Like that's tiger. So we know what that can be like and what that can look like. Which I do believe that if you look at a lot of the dwarves that have the tiger blood, they are bigger than some mainlands. Sometimes some mainlands kind of grow on the smaller side.
I think with the older morphs, the morphs that have been around longer, they've been bred into so many generations and different sizes that that sort of original tigers get big is not quite the same now. Well, I think they only got big originally because the male was bred to big females at the time. I think that's right from memory, but you're right. Early tigers had a reputation for getting big.
Well, I can tell you, my Motley tiger, I have a Motley tiger. She's hat purple, and she's bigger than all of them. And she's not the oldest. No. She's not the oldest. Fed on the same schedule. She's just naturally big. She's beautiful, but she's naturally bigger. I laughed when I first got the first one. I was told, get something with Golden Child. I was like, yeah, I like Golden Child. So I got the Motley Golden Child Sunfire, and she was 10 feet within the first year.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, forget the Golden Child, okay? Because it's not like it. It's not making this snake no smaller than the Motley Moschino.
Yeah, it is a bit of a lottery now. All the genes and they're all fairly mixed, and unless you've kept lines super small or unless you've kept lines super big, then it's a bit of a lottery. Or you can sort of expect somewhere in the middle, maybe.
Right.
and deal with it if it's a bit bigger than that. It's probably the way to go, I think. But, yeah.
If you were talking from your professional's perspective to people like myself and others who do love these animals, who have multiple animals, what are your thoughts on the best responsible way to present them to the public? Because there's some, I will tell you, for me, when I first started showing people that these animals were manageable, with ways without having to poke them with something first before touching them and things like that. A lot of people were like, you shouldn't do that because if someone new got one, they're going to think they're going to be able to do that. I always give a disclaimer. I always tell them this is what you want to work towards and things like that. But what are your thoughts? What do you think we should be showing in the handling of these animals?
I was going to say, I might make my profession's actually very boring. I work for the government doing data analysis, so I don't get paid for anything reptile related. It's all voluntary in my spare time. But introducing people to retics. I mean, one of the best ways is just giving someone a snake and saying, look, this is a retic. It's an amazing animal. And I think that contact with any snakes, but especially retics, you're just sort of in their hearts, I think. And then
you do.
You watch fear and trepidation. It's like, is this all right? And you're like, yeah, this is the snake I know well. This is absolutely fine. And then they sort of get contact with that snake, and then you just see the fear and all their prejudice sort of melt away. It's great.
Well, even with my grandchildren, I don't let them handle the big ones. Just I don't let them handle my big Rottweiler. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing to do with the fact that it's a retic. It's the fact that it's a big animal that I don't let them handle it. I just don't think. And don't get me wrong. When I look at Emmy, she knows what she's doing. She grew up with them snakes. My grandkids did not. But they'll handle all of the babies. They'll clean them. They can get them out. All that. They have no fear at all. They don't have fear of the big ones. It's me just saying you can't be handling that snake. Now I'll get them out, let the snake crawl over them and stuff like that. But I won't allow them to go and get a snake out of a 15-foot enclosure.
Right. I mean, it's responsible. If you've got a big dog, don't let kids alone with a big dog, even if it's a trusted family pet. Accidents happen. Same with anything really, and big snakes are no different.
And I think that's another thing that we have to remember. Like, okay, I know we have these awesome relationships with these animals, but one of the things that kind of makes me nervous is when people take these animals out for educational purposes. And they allow 15 children to come and touch a foot of the snake. That to me is too much going on for a 15-foot reticulated python.
And I've done that with many animals, and you sort of you build them up, you build the animals up. Not all animals will get to that point, but you start the animals young. You take them to small things where maybe you're just talking to other reptile keepers in your club, and you'll get an idea straight away if that snake's going to be terrible and horrified in that environment.
When it's like a few children, where I can still watch the. No, but when you have a real big, and don't get me wrong, yes, I know you can, just like people don't think that you can just touch them. I can get that. But my fear is when something goes wrong, especially here, because it's always the snake's fault. And it's never, when it goes wrong publicly. Yeah. But I do think we should keep them in the educational circuit. I do that myself, but I'm more like individually, like you said, you can hold them, you can hold them, you can hold them, than the children. I like to use the boas more, which, in my opinion, sometimes the boas can be worse. Compared
they don't give you as much warning, do they? But again, you learn the animal and you build the animal up. You don't just put it in a room of 100 people.
Right.
This animal's done 10 years of rooms of small people, and then we've built the numbers up, and you learn the animal. So
that's my point. Sometimes people would just take the animal to a park and just say, "Okay, everybody can touch them." Like, how do you know that? Like, how do you know that? And that's my biggest fear is the United States is hard on our animals, like on the larger retics and things like that. It's lack of education. For them, for the people who makes these governmental decisions as well. But you get to work closely with the government in the UK. And so overall in the UK, they have a good reputation of keeping these animals, or is it you think it's similar?
I mean, from what I see, I think the standard of keeping reptiles has increased massively in the last 10 or so years, maybe definitely longer than that. But the government side of things, they will seek views from all over. So if we submit views from our side, they'll at least consider them, I think. And if animal rights groups write their views, then I think both sides get considered. The decision-making process is a bit more complicated than just that, but we can. I know there's an opportunity to submit comments and thoughts, and hope they're listened to. So
what are your future goals with the reptile keeping? Do you think you will ever keep more than what you have now? Do you think that it's, getting to the point where maybe, you want to fall back with some of the reptiles, or like, what is your overall experience? Because some people get overwhelmed, and I always say I would never get more than makes me like, I enjoy it. Like, I feel like I live in my own little zoo.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like a happy place anymore, then I need to rethink that. But I keep myself from getting to the part of exhaustion.
Yeah.
How do you feel, and how do you manage that mindset, loving all the animals you do?
Yeah. I mean, I've had many animals for many years now, so it's always just been a routine I get myself into, sort of work, sort of an evening, sort of quick spruce round things, and then some weekends I'll take time to do much more deep cleaning and just spend time with the animals. I do find a lot of the time friends come around to help out, and they get to play with the animals whilst I'm on my hands and knees with a poop scoop and a shovel. So I miss out on some amount, but I've got a good network of friends and people in my local area who are more than happy to come around and chip in. So that works really well. The one concession I have made, rather than getting someone like regularly to help clean the animals, I've got someone to help clean the rest of my house. So
okay,
someone does that bit, so I don't have to do that, and I can spend time doing the animals, which I'd prefer. So
right, absolutely. So where can people find you? Like, if you were not on this podcast, which you should be doing way more than than you are. I know, like, a lot of the people who, like, especially the people who've been keeping for years, they hate this social media stuff. Like, I be trying to just pull people out, like, no, I refuse. Yeah. But I think that with that, because the people, I was telling Sean Bradley when I interviewed him this, when you kept animals for so long, like, because the best information comes from experience, not from reading a book. I can read this book 100 times, but if I never purchased the first reticulated python, I wouldn't be able to relate to anything.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. Hands-on experience is always the best, and if you can learn from a range of sources, including experienced keepers, then that's a really good way to learn. So yeah, but yeah, I'm on social media. I'm not always active, but I'm there. You can contact me.
What about the Herp Society? For people, there are people from the UK who watches this podcast. If you can plug that information and where they can find that info.
So a list of FBH affiliated clubs is on the Federation of British Herpetologists website. If you don't even have to be local to Portsmouth, but if you want Portsmouth, then it's Praz UK website or Instagram, and that should sort of link you up to the clubs that are around. We have two national societies, so the International Herp Society is UK based, and the British Herpetological Society is UK based, and they have, I think, a lot more members that are worldwide as well. So they're worth signing up to for their papers and journals and all that good stuff.
So if you had to create a perfect world of reptiles, and that world was just you and the 5, I know it's going to be hard, the 5 animals you can keep on that island, and that's where you're stuck at forever, what would be those 5 animals?
Individuals or species?
Species. Yes.
Okay.
That would be hard. We know we can't do that.
That would be hard. Yeah. So I've got my retics. I think I got some true red-tailed boas. I love those. They're really nice eggs.
Okay.
I'm gonna go predictable and get my corn snakes for nostalgia. They're amazing snakes. People overlook them just because they're so common.
Oh, I love my corn snake. I love them.
Yeah. I know the other 2 will change sort of on a daily basis, I think. I don't really know.
That's funny. So you know what? Corn snakes are highly intelligent too. That's what I like about them. And I was telling somebody, they're not as small as people think. My corn snake is pretty big.
Yeah.
I mean, compared, you know what I mean? He started off this little thing, and then now he's probably easily 5 feet. Like, he's a big boy. But what I love about corn snakes, unlike any of these other animals, I could literally just put water in there and he would be fine.
Yeah. I don't know if you found this, but I sort of think that corns and retics behave fairly similarly in their looking around. You have that too?
I say that all the time on my podcast. Even the food response. Let's talk about a corn snake food response.
Yeah, they're hungry. They eat well.
Man, that thing will come from out of anywhere once they smell the food coming. I talk about that. I do believe, and so people always ask me, even with children, what do I think is the best starter snake? To me, it's still the ball python, even though you might have issues where it doesn't eat regularly, but that's typically at 1,000 grams. Most kids are not going to worry about that as much as a breeder would.
Yeah.
A corn snake, on the other hand, you put that in a child's hand, it's like putting a retic in a child's hand.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's all over the place. Yeah.
It could be intimidating to a child. So I always say it depends on what that child wants. If you want an animal that's still, then it's the ball python. It's not necessarily the best first snake for a child to me.
No, everyone's different to what's going to be a good first snake. And I always say, if there's something you really want, make that your first snake, but just do the appropriate amount of research. Like, if you really want an anaconda as your first snake, do more research than if your first snake was a corn snake. But
yep. And with that said, and we can end that here, the obligation is also on the people who keep it, like Sid himself, who wrote us a book so we can get educated. And I would like for, more of us to utilize the tools that we have to educate people. So when people do have that passion to get into the animals that we love, because we want to see them around a lot, that they can actually have a place and a resource that's tangible, just like every other thing is tangible. If you buy a gun today, you can get all the information you want on that gun right there on YouTube. Our reticulated pythons education is definitely as important as that, specifically with them being large animals, or even with that, people understand that the animal that you get at this size in less than a year is going to be that big old thing that you saw on the video.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not
seen people buying multiple baby retics, and there's a part of my brain going, "You've got 10 plus baby retics. You know how prepared are you for 2 years' time?" It's like,
yes, you definitely.
It's not for me to judge, but there's that to think about. They grow fast, and having a few becomes hard work quickly. Yeah.
And one of the things I say to people all the time, like when they talk about like the price of the animal, and I'll say, if you're concerned about the upfront cost of this animal, you definitely want to research more, because you're going to have to feed it. It's going to cost way more than what you're paying for the animal.
The animal cost is the small part, the housing and the heating and the food and the cleaning.
Yeah, definitely the housing.
Yeah,
definitely. Well, I definitely appreciate you doing this for me and just being so kind. Because like I said, I know you haven't done. I think I probably only saw you like I don't even know if it was a podcast. It could have been like on some other social media or whatever. Speak. So I was honored that you definitely decided to do this. Definitely a person that I was following, and I think I admired just what you did with this creation. I mean, it was well needed, and for me, I wouldn't have any of this experience with these animals if I didn't come across books such as the Reticulated Python Complete Guide to Care and Husbandry by Sid James, and I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you having me on. It's been great. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
No problem. You have an amazing day, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Yep, speak soon. Thank you.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye.
All right, guys, there you have it. Very, very knowledgeable individual when it comes to the animals that y'all know I love so much. If you have not grabbed a copy on it, I've got mine from Amazon. So a lot of you guys who, call me and ask questions, and you ask about, reticulated python knowledge, I think this is a good one for you to have. It's one that started me out really, really well. It got me on the right path. I think it's authentic. I think that it is right on the money. And I love the fact that it's a collaboration of different people who helped produce it. So with that being said, you all have an amazing Saturday. Do something great today. And I will see you later on Two Peeps in a Podcast on Monday. And tonight at 10 o'clock, you should be watching Wiz Constrictors, Sophisticated Ignorance with the brother Joey D. Peace.